Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Cover One Buffalo podcast. It's me, Aaron Quinn, with your boy, Greg Thompson. How you doing, man?
Good. Good evening, everybody. How you guys doing?
Good. I'm a little disappointed. The sweater game is just kind of, it's all right. It's nothing. I don't think anybody's going to get too excited about it on Twitter tonight, but you look nicer than I do again.
I appreciate it. I got the cuffs going, so I got a little bit of color here, a little bit of color up here, but yeah, just a navy pullover sweater for tonight.
Honestly, it's too damn cold here in Buffalo, and outside of getting in full snow gear to get my neighbors out of their driveways this morning, I really didn't leave my pajamas today. I'm not going to lie. I just stayed in as many warm clothes as I could. It's just too damn cold.
No, it's gross. We had facilities across the Canadian border that we had to close today. Pembina, North Dakota, was at negative 28 without the wind chill, and I can't ask people to go to work in that kind of weather. That's insane.
No, yeah. And I looked at my neighbor and I was like, first of all, he's an older man. I was like, dude, first of all, get inside. And I was like, is this what it was like in the Ice Age when you were young? He didn't love that comment, but it was a good talking point. But we have a little bit of news to discuss today. It's a tough time of year, so we don't have a ton of Bills news, but we do have the Super Bowl this week, so we'll get into a little bit of that Super Bowl talk as well. Before we start ripping into the conversation in the meat, if you will, of the evening, we both are big meat fans, so I'll put that in there anytime I get a chance. I do want to tell you a little bit about Cover One. If this is your first time coming, or if you've already heard the spiel, just kind of ignore me and get in the chat for a little bit. But cover1.net is the premier place to go for any type of analyzing of the game of football. So our crew is hard at work right now, putting together all kinds of scouting reports and just draft analysis of everybody coming into the draft. Between the group of them, everybody is just working hard to get out all the draft prospects. And obviously you have Eric Turner working really on trying to figure out who the Bills are going to be looking at as prospects, and kind of taking a fine-tooth comb through all the players. And if you aren't already a member of the premium Slack channel, you definitely want to get in on that, because he is always looking for information from the Slack channel of who to look for next, who fans want to see. And he's also given us that information first and foremost. So that only comes with the premium subscription, which you can get at cover1.net. Greg, what do you love about the premium subscription, man?
By far my favorite is that premium channel Slack. And like you said, I think people underestimate, when guys like Eric and Christian and Russell and Jordan and all the different guys are looking for, whether it's kind of inspiration on the next topic or sometimes just debating, hey, I got 200 more draft prospects to go next. Who would you guys like to see next? He really does just come in and check and be like, hey, I'm kind of debating on one of these offensive tackles. You guys want to see a write-up on him or him? And we'll kind of go through and all kind of kick around ideas and be like, oh, yeah, I heard he was looking really good. Or, hey, his footwork looked a little off. And it turns into this whole discussion, and then Eric goes and does the full breakdown on it, and we get to see a full write-up and the whole scouting report and the video breakdowns, and it's really interactive and fun to be able to get an idea. Especially there are some positions I've really kind of dove into more that the Bills are really interested in, but it was guys were talking running backs last night, and I'm like, yeah, I have no idea. I know guys run the ball, and I'm sure we're going to get one of those. And by the time I was done with the evening, I had watched like 12 YouTube clips and read a handful of the breakdowns, and it's awesome to just have access to people who care and are engaged and really involved in what's going on. And even though the Bills season has been over for a month now, that premium channel Slack is just roaring every day. It's awesome.
So you looked at running backs last night. How you feeling about my buddy Dexter Williams? There, nice. A nice mid-round pick. Well, we can get into that at another point, but did you get to look into him at all?
I did. He was one of them. It was Henderson from Memphis and him, and then the shifty guy too. There was another Singleton. Those guys were the ones I looked at.
Yeah. So, I agree. It's a fun community, and it's always going. I sometimes, if in the middle of the night they're going, when I've got a ton of stuff to do, I come back and there's a bunch of messages to read through. It's always a fun time. So there's that and more. There's premium content. Obviously, Greg, if you've been following us on social media or here on the channel, Greg's done a few interviews lately, and those go out to the premium members first, and all access type stuff like that. And that type of content is like growing and growing. And on top of that, the premium membership, we don't charge a lot for that stuff, but it's just a little stuff like that really helps keep cover1.net going. So if you like the content content we do, whether it's the podcast or the site itself and all that work that goes into it. All that stuff costs time and money just to keep the website up and functioning. So it really does go to help that stuff too. So every little person that comes and shows us their appreciation, not only do you get something really cool for it, but it helps to keep us going and keep churning out content for you guys. So we do appreciate it, every single person that's been involved to this point. Let's dig into the meat and potatoes, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the stuff we offer later on. Huge breaking news coming in, a huge position. Obviously, we're all on the edge of our seats waiting to find out who's going to be the offensive line assistant coach.
It's huge. It's enormous. I know everyone, had their entire kind of draft board, and a lot of people were weighing between the 10 or 15 different options. It was exciting to see the Bills went and reached out to Terry Heffernan, yes. A guy that had been connected with Bobby Johnson and the Lions back in 2012 to 2015. The majority of his time had been in the college ranks. So he had actually most recently been the assistant head coach and offensive line coach at Eastern Kentucky. So he's gone back and forth, was the offensive coordinator in college, and now will come back to the NFL with some experience there. Still a young guy. I think he's 37, but somebody that had a connection previously with Bobby Johnson and a good track record of some different opportunities. Hard to get real excited about an assistant line coach, but just another young guy that maybe some new youthful energy coming in, and I'll take that as a positive.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of people that are frustrated with how long things are taking to fill out. So any type of vacancies and filling out those vacancies is a good thing. Filling out the staff, you want to get that done so that they can contribute. I know the assistant offensive line or the assistant to the offensive line coach isn't going to bring a lot as far as say to the table, but he's going to be able to help break down some of that draft stuff that the scouts are bringing the coaches and what they're looking for, and putting that whole piece together of, helping put the board together and what this team's looking for. So the sooner you can get that stuff done, the better. And you had also mentioned that he's related to Doug Heffernan, or no, is that not?
I think is a different King of Queens. I don't think it was the same guy.
Oh, okay.
One of the connections there was, I know a lot of times there are very few positions that have as much correlation with free agency as the offensive line. Linemen are creatures of habit. They like similar technique, similar coaching. So one of the most common things, you saw that when Aaron Cromer came over, he brought Ryan Groy. When Juan Castillo came over, he brought Vlad Ducasse and Jordan Mills. You got guys coming in that have connections with previous coaches, previous experience, and a lot of that is connected to that. So something with both Heffernan and Johnson. There's a handful of different guys. Johnson crossed over. We talked about some of the things when he was a tight ends coach. He had Jared Cook. He had Kyle Rudolph. When he was a lineman, we got a couple connections there with Indy, although Glowinski went and got re-signed. LaAdrian Waddle is an offensive tackle that's a free agent that I think is in that lower tier, that if we don't get one of the Trent Brown's, Darrell Williams, big $10 million a season guys, he may be someone who's kind of a Band-Aid that you pair with a rookie like a Yadni Kajust or Cody Ford, or someone that maybe we're not sure can start day one. So you bring somebody in that, hey, this guy could be the starter for the first couple weeks till he's ready, or a good depth swing tackle. So LaAdrian Waddle is a name we can keep an eye on as a cheap Band-Aid kind of fill guy. Might be an alternative to Jordan Mills because he'd be that same tier player.
I hate to say it, that excites me about as much as talking about an offensive assistant coach. I get it. It's not, we've talked about it a lot on this show. The fix of this line and the team itself isn't going to happen in the 2019 offseason. So you're going to have some positions that aren't going to be up to the standards that we want them to be going into next year. And if it's having somebody that's a fit with people on the staff versus having a guy that's just been here and is, as I refer to him, the stain in the carpet that you just can't get out of the stain. Go away. Yeah, I don't care if it's another version of him, as long as he doesn't have the same name. I think I can bear it for a year or two until they fix that position. So I agree with you that that's probably something to keep an eye on, because they're going to have a hard time fixing all those pieces plus all the other things they're going to have to do, unless some miraculous thing happens in the 2019 offseason and they're really able to hit across the board on all their needs. And I just can't see that coming into play. So there's going to be positions like that where they bring in a guy just out of the level of comfort of having had him before.
Yeah, we have to brace ourselves for the fact that every single need is not going to be filled this offseason. Just like you said, that we're going to have, I think it's realistic to assume we bring in 2 new starters on the offensive line. 3 would be nice, but that could be tough. Long-term starters, which means there's 1 or 2 other spots that are going to be up for grabs, either with a Band-Aid signing or bracing ourselves that, hey, we're going to have another year of Russell Bodine. We're going to have another year of Jordan Mills. We're going to have another year of Wyatt Teller. 1 or 2 of those guys may have to start again. And then you look for a premium pick or a big splurge signing in 2020. And then maybe we have our long-term line together from that standpoint. But in the short term, I think we need to brace ourselves that there's probably going to be 1 or 2 ugly spots on that line still, although that could still be a sizable improvement with another year from Dawkins, another year from Teller, and then hopefully a premium draft pick and a splurge signing this year that all together come together well.
Yeah, and I do think when you look at that, like, particularly right tackle position, unless they get somebody in the draft that they aren't comfortable to put at left and swing Dawkins somewhere else, that might fix it that way. But I really think that they're going to focus on the center and work their way out. I think Brandon Beane's comments have said as much, that is probably the number 1 priority for them. Whether they're able to land that guy or not is obviously unseen, but I think that is going to be the priority here as soon as action starts happening in free agency. So when you start there and try to work your way out, that right tackle kind of becomes, not that it's not as important in the NFL anymore, because I think it is, because people are moving all around. Right tackle is very important. But I think for the 2019 offseason, it could become the one that just gets left undone because of focusing on center, and maybe you aren't able to move Dawkins because you didn't replace him. There's all that's a very big possibility, and I'm okay with that if they solidify the interior and get Josh Allen a center that he can play with for however long his career here is in Buffalo, just some guy that's very consistent and can help him.
Absolutely.
So we saw that. We don't have to spend too much more time on that. A big one kind of out of the blue. It's something that we've talked about a little bit here on the show, mostly because there was rumors that, or not even rumors, I take that back. There was within the fan base kind of a anxiety or a feeling that we should fire David Culley because of whatever. He didn't do a great job with Peterman. He was never really a quarterback's coach. Sometimes people just want to fire people to see heads roll. We're just mad and we want to see people fired. I never understood the Culley getting fired thing, but I think actually similar to how the Josh Allen injury worked out this year, where it wasn't ideal when you first heard about it, but then when you kind of step back and look at it and you say, hey, well, he's got a chance now. I think the Culley thing worked out in the best possible way that it could. They don't have to fire him. He goes on to another job with the Baltimore Ravens, and now they have the opportunity to bring in a real quarterback coach, possibly a veteran coach, maybe a new up-and-coming coach, but they have the opportunity to switch things up. You've got some theories on David Culley and Josh Allen, and then on the quarterback coach and how you believe that it will play out. Do you want to put on your tinfoil hat and start getting into conspiracies, or you just want to tell us?
Yeah. So there's a couple different things. You certainly talked me off the ledge. I was in the camp of we need to fire David Culley. He is not good for the organization. I think that you kind of brought up some points that it's unfair to be excited about the progress that Josh Allen made and assume that he had nothing to do with that. Now, I still have my reservations of how much he had to do with that. And the reason is that every single presser that Josh Allen had, he would always talk about Coach Dabes and DA. Over and over and over again. He would say them all the time. He literally almost never said Coach Culley. There was once I specifically remember where he had talked about Anderson and Dable for a couple of minutes, like a good minute or two. And then all of a sudden it was like, yeah, and Coach Culley too. And like literally threw him in knowing like, oh, I should probably mention him. Now, maybe that's a coincidence. Maybe it's just because he's closer with the player and the coordinator is a more important role. So there's a possibility it's a coincidence. But the fact that he almost never mentioned him or talked about him at least gave me the impression that he wasn't critical to that setup and that environment. So now it comes into, I know people talked about Jordan Palmer. You and I have tried to talk people off of that ledge that, hey, that's fine. If the coaches want to call him and see if he wants to give up this cushy quarterback guru gig where he gets to hang out in Southern California and work really hard for 2 months and get paid a ton of money and then not have to work the rest of the year, maybe. But that just doesn't seem very likely that he's going to want to do that. The only possibility is if he genuinely sees a future as an offensive coordinator and a head coach and just needs to have a step in the door at some point. And then the possibility of doing it with his top probably candidate or prospect to this point is a possibility. I don't expect that. I don't think that's realistic. So the one that has come up that I think is a little, conspiracy-esque is Derek Anderson. And now obviously in 2019, that's not going to happen. Derek Anderson signed a contract for the veteran minimum at $1.2 million. He only counts as the veteran minimum against us, but why in the world would he give up $1.2 million to not play and be the inactive third quarterback every week and be like a quarterback coach in the room and not have to put anything at risk, whereas a quarterback coach probably makes $100,000, and why would he take that pay cut? So that's not realistic. However, it does lead to the idea that all the rest of the positions we've done, we've looked at something of a young, up-and-coming, hungry quarterback coach or a position coach. And I like that idea, but I think the possibility could be here that maybe they really do view Derek Anderson as a quarterback coach down the line. I could see a scenario where maybe you have one of the recently fired offensive coordinators, maybe a Marty Mornhinweg, maybe a Jim Bob Cooter, maybe a Mike McCoy, that hey, they're looking to kind of rebuild their reputation, stay fresh in the league, but they're not looking for some 5-year run as a quarterback coach. They want to just kind of have a short stop and then move on to a new opening as an offensive coordinator next year. I could see something like that where maybe they bring in Jim Bob Cooter for 1 year as a well-paid quarterback coach, or Marty Mornhinweg, Mike McCoy, a handful of other names like that. Your guys who didn't turn out as an offensive coordinator, you bring him in. It's an experienced voice in the room. It gives a new perspective to Josh. It's not anybody that's going to be redoing footwork, changing his mechanics, any technique. It's just a new voice in the room. Derek Anderson's still there. Matt Barkley's still there. Dable is still the lead voice. And all of a sudden now you have kind of a handshake deal that you come in for a 1-year stint. Then we're going to have Derek Anderson take over as a quarterback coach, and you have some sustainability and some consistency. That's connecting a lot of dots. That's, a little crazy, but I think I could see something like that versus maybe going for somebody brand new and up and coming and trying to have a long-term quarterback coach there, because maybe Derek Anderson is that guy.
Yeah, that's a lot to digest for me. I think that when you look at the guys like Mornhinweg and McCoy, I understand where you're coming from with that. I just don't know. Like, I look at Mike McCoy, for instance, and he was with Arizona last year, right?
Yeah.
McCoy. With a rookie and a team that didn't have a lot of weapons and obviously lost his job. Everybody there lost their jobs. Didn't produce to the way he wants. I don't know that he would look at Buffalo and Josh Allen and say, 1 year to really turn my career back on the right trajectory. It makes sense for me with Josh Allen. Now, he might not have any other options.
I was just going to say, those 3 names are not hired and every offensive coordinator job is filled.
Sure. But they could also go take those types of jobs as an assistant somewhere else. And I just don't know, where's his track record? Like, what has he done lately? And the league is a what have you done for me lately type of league. And I think the only other concern that I have with some of these guys that are a little bit older coaches is my concern with older coaches. And I think we saw it a little bit with Rubisky and maybe a little bit with Juan Castillo, is being so stuck in what they know in their ways, and not being willing to adapt to the players themselves and coming in and saying, hey, look, I've been doing this for 15, 20 years. I got all the knowledge. Just kind of shut up and listen to me. Where I think the idea of some of these younger coaches that they've got coming in have the enthusiasm and are more part of the big picture that Sean McDermott and Brian Dable are building, and Leslie Frazier, where it's a top-down approach versus having a guy that's been a head coach and had all this type of experience to come in as an assistant. And I don't know. Maybe I'm rambling or thinking on it too much, but I don't always love the idea of the vet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine line. That was something that I think has at least a possibility.
Yeah. For sure.
But if they come out and sign some, new, fresh idea, hungry guy, I'll be ecstatic. That'd be great. I just think that's a possibility as a short-term stopgap with this opening coming up here.
I think it makes total sense. I'm just trying to play a kind of devil's advocate of why don't, because I think those names, I've seen them on Twitter when people saw Mornhinweg come available, I think a lot of people said, hey, you know what, that makes sense. Like, he's been in the league a while, he's worked with good quarterbacks, he's got a lot of, he can impart that on Josh Allen. But at the end of the day, I'm not super worried about this, because whether or not he becomes a coach or not, Derek Anderson being there they're paying him $1 million to essentially be a coach, whether or not he is or not. He's not getting paid to play football. He's getting paid to mentor and be there and be somebody for Josh Allen to ask questions to, and just go through that process with him. He will not dress unless there's some major emergency. So no matter really who they bring in as a coach, Derek Anderson is going to be a big pillar of consistency for Josh Allen. And so even if it is a young guy, I think they at least have Anderson there to help even a young guy and Josh Allen.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm not too stressed about it. I think that we actually have a pretty good shot at. And another name that we brought in for an interview at one point was Joe Philbin. And that's another possibility of a short-term fix and a guy that could come in that kind of veteran role and still be a good voice in that room.
I'm down. At this point, though, actually, that's really the one that they can fill last, because we're not bringing in any other quarterbacks. They can't touch them until the spring. So I don't really care who the one they pick is, and I don't need it to happen quickly. So I don't think it'll happen quickly. I think they have other priorities. And obviously, there's still one job remaining out there. And I don't know if you have any speculation into what's going on with the wide receivers coach. This one is seeming to take a little bit of time. I think we all thought it would be an internal position up for somebody, but we haven't seen that. You'd think if it was an internal move that would have happened at this point. Same with the quarterback coach. So they're obviously looking on the outside. This Bills organization, as good as it is for the organization themselves, for guys like us, it's super frustrating because we have 0 leads, 0 leaks, nothing's coming out. We don't know who they've interviewed, what's going on. Any day we could just get stunned with whoever it's going to be. You have any idea of what they're thinking or doing?
No. Now, I said, as I try to learn to interpret McDermottese, he did talk about Chad Hall a fair amount, where he wasn't asked about him at all, was asked about the wide receiver coach opening, and he made it very apparent that, hey, we're really happy with the work Chad Hall has done. He's done a really nice job. And that's not what they asked. So I think we kind of interpreted that as, oh, well, maybe they're just going to promote him. Now, if that was the case, they would have done that in the past 4 weeks. There's been plenty of opportunity to simply do that. So right now, the only dot I have left to connect is that there is an assistant level guy with the Patriots that Dable has a connection with, or the Rams, and maybe there's not a connection, but that there's someone on the Patriots or Rams staff, just like Zach Taylor hasn't left to go to Cincinnati and didn't want to talk about it. Brian Flores is going to Miami, didn't want to talk about it. Maybe something like that to be able to come over, and we're just waiting for that to happen. That's the only obvious connection I can make, is that there's a guy on the Patriots or Rams staff that's at an assistant level that we're going to give his first opportunity to be a full-time position coach, and that we're just waiting for that to happen. I can't think of anything else obvious other than there's still, maybe they went after a guy or two that took a job elsewhere or couldn't get permission to interview, but we're kind of past that window now. So there has to be someone in particular they're waiting on. And the only reason you'd be waiting is they're still playing. So I have a feeling that if we don't hear anything by the end of next week, then I'm going to be kind of concerned that something weird's going on. I have a feeling we're going to find out about this next week.
Yeah, I think it's coming down the line. And yeah, I remember Eric kind of bringing that idea up of, hey, maybe it's somebody coaching in the Super Bowl. And that's great. If somebody's coming off a hot run, or anytime we can get Patriots coaches that have had experience with Daboll, I'm all for it. So something to keep an eye on here. Slow news week, relatively. I think it's going to be slow here for the next couple of weeks outside of that wide receiver coach, and maybe we get the quarterback coach news. But outside of that, this is a pretty big lull after the Super Bowl till the combine, really. Is there anything else I'm missing in between that gets us excited about football again? Besides, obviously, you guys come to talk to us every week.
Clearly. There's nothing obvious. Finishing out the coaching staff, being able to work through. I'd say the only window that we have now between now and the combine is maybe re-signing some of our own players. We might see a blip there. That's where maybe we get something from Jordan Phillips. I anticipate that Phillips is 26, and unrestricted free agent and probably wants to test the market a little bit. So I anticipate he's still a possibility to re-sign, but probably in the free agency period versus beforehand. And then beyond that, not a lot outside of there. Maybe one of the offensive linemen coming back.
Yeah, no, all good stuff. So that kind of brings us to it's Super Bowl week, and this has probably been the different scenarios for me and you because it's in your hometown. It's down where you're at. You got to experience the Super Bowl experience. So I'll talk about that a little bit. For me, man, I have barely even had any time to watch any of the Super Bowl stuff. I have very little interest until the actual game itself. For me, I'm on a diet. If you follow me on Twitter, you've seen, and I'm on this 30-day cleanse. So really, I'm more excited about gushing myself with cheese and carbs on Super Bowl Sunday than I am about the game itself. I just don't have watching the Patriots in a Super Bowl again doesn't really interest me. I have some interest in watching the Rams, but for me, this is almost the least interesting Super Bowl that I can remember. And I think the game will live up to it once we get to the game, but the lead up for it is just dragging for me and killing me. Because your experience has been totally different. What's your experience been like?
It's really important to look at, what's going on here. I try to enjoy the Super Bowl for what it is every year. I have a Super Bowl party every year. I really enjoy it. Granted, it gets annoying that half of them have been Patriots games, but whatever. You kind of get used to that piece of it. I still am into it and enjoy it and go with the whole thing. I do Super Bowls. I do prop bets. We actually do a prop bet sheet at my Super Bowl party where everybody puts in $10 and I put out, the color of the Gatorade and how long the national anthem is and the coin flip and who scores first and who's winning at the first quarter, halftime, about 15 questions, and everybody fills it out, and whoever gets the most right wins the pot. So just give something, who the first commercial is after the kickoff and some questions about the halftime, all kinds of fun stuff like that. So I try to have a good time with it. It's the last time I'm going to watch meaningful football for months. So, I want to be excited about it. I did have a chance. I took my family down to the Super Bowl experience on Tuesday night. And we went down and checked it out. I thought it was going to be basically just for me, and the family was going to just kind of have to tolerate it. It was awesome. They did a fantastic job. I was so impressed with how many activities they had and the stuff they had going for the kids. And I actually got a chance to meet Thomas Davis. He was getting interviewed on the Adam Shine show. He and London Fletcher were there. I was yelling over to London, and I had a Bills shirt on saying, "Hey, London, tell him what it's like. We need him, with Bills Mafia." And got to talk to him for like 30 seconds afterwards, and said, "Hey, I really hope you can come and talk with the team and reunite with Sean McDermott." And he said, "Oh, don't worry, we'll talk." So I think it was just kind of cool to be able to see so many people around and do the whole thing. So I was excited and had a really good time with it. But it's something that I still try to enjoy regardless of how the Patriots try to ruin it for me every year.
Yeah, it looked like a blast. I'm super jealous. Got to see all your pictures. My brother and I have always talked about getting together and leave wife and kids at home and going to do like one of the drafts or something in a new city, because they're always the NFL really throws a party and they make it a whole experience. But I even think we could bring the kids and they could have a good time. And watching all, you put out a bunch of pictures in the Slack channel and out on Twitter. I was very happy for you and jealous at the same time, because it looks like if it was a few, I don't know how far you are from downtown, but if it was close to my house, no matter who's in the Super Bowl, I'd be living it up. But yeah, no, the Patriots, man, I think you got to stop throwing the Super Bowl party until they're out of it for 5 years.
Maybe
I think
it's my fault.
Maybe
it's my fault. I don't know.
The problem. Also, you should stream it here and let people make PayPal bets.
I like it. Hey, I'll start taking that. With the game itself, I really think it comes down to two things. It's going to be one of
dominating the line of scrimmage and defense. No, all right.
It really is. No, but you're right. It's literally everybody knows it. So, can and Ndamukong Suh and Aaron Donald get in Brady's face when the Patriots know that's their number one weapon, and be able to go in and kind of get pressure, push him off his spot, don't let him step up in the pocket when they know it's coming. And then the other side of it, can the Rams still run on first and second down and not have to rely fully on play action when the Patriots know they're going to try to run the ball? So, it's tough to be able to, try to figure out how that's going to work. It's silly to think that the Patriots aren't going to have a great game plan and aren't going to be in this game to the very end. But I think the Rams have a very legitimate shot. I think that it's a 2-point spread for a reason. I think that it's really close for a reason with what, they kind of have going for offensive weapons and what's there. And I think if Todd Gurley can get loose in the passing game and, have him, one-on-one with one of their linebackers, they don't have someone, that's going to be able to. Kyle Van Noy and Hightower cannot guard him. So, that's going to be something. If they try to put Patrick Chung on him, I think you could have some freedom for Gerald Everett and some of those guys in the middle. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for it, and I obviously desperately want the Rams to win. So I'm just rooting for Wade Phillips and him to be able to kind of go out in the blaze of glory.
Yeah, I am really hoping to see a couple Stephon Gilmore burnt toast moments on the Twitter. The nice thing about the Rams is even if they get down, and I heard a statistic 2 or 3 years ago, whenever Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski are playing together, it's almost like a 14-point advantage at kickoff for them versus the other team. So, but the Rams are one of these few teams that even with that disadvantage, I feel like they can score so quick and they have the great game plans on offense, great talent on offense that they can overcome that disadvantage right at the start of the game. I agree with you though, man. And I know we've given each other hell on the Slack, and I always come back to line of scrimmage and defense, and I don't want it to get taken too out of context about that, but I do think that this game is going to be decided there. And we know historically that Bill Belichick prides himself and has built his legacy on taking away whatever the other team does best. And what they do best on that side of the ball is Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh. So if they, like you said, are able to take that away, I think that really is going to set the tone for the rest of the game. If you limit what they're able to do, I don't know that the Rams have really anything else that can stop them. That defense starts and stops with Aaron Donald mostly. And then if Suh can also get there too, it plays to the strengths of the Rams because interior pressure has always been, I know the Giants got to him with some exterior pressure, but interior pressure has always been Brady's Achilles heel. And if they can get that rush up the middle and get in his head early, it could be a really, you got to dominate and start that line of scrimmage early, and they might be able to do it. And then on the flip side, on the other side of the ball, if they can get the ground game going with Anderson and Gurley and dominate the line of scrimmage and open up some holes for those guys, I think that's the path to victory for the Rams. I know that they've been slinging the ball all around the field all year, but I think in a game like this, they're going to really want to keep Tom Brady off the field, and that's going to require establishing that run game and then dominate on the other side of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, so there's a couple things that are interesting with the Rams. For anybody who looks at some of the lineup stats that get put out there, and they look at how many different lineups teams used, it got attention for the Bills because we were the most in the NFL. We had the most different players having to play on offensive lineups, and it was insane. I think we had like 46 different lineups of different people playing at any given point. And most teams were in the high teens, 20s, some in the 30s. The Rams played 6. There were 6 different lineups they played the entire season. 96% of their plays, it's 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back. 96%. Now, they use a crazy amount of formations in motion, but that's how their running game works, is they get you in nickel and they get you in dime, and then they run the ball anyways. So being able to do that, that's why Todd Gurley's had the numbers he's had. So how Belichick counters that will be interesting. And if McVay pivots from that and goes more 2 wide or goes more 4 wide, 2 tight end, heavy sets, and changes it up, there's not a lot of film on that. To be able to go through and kind of understand how to work through there. So Belichick's just going to have a ton of options and then be ready to react. And obviously he can, but that's going to be a huge part if McVay can kind of change it up and do something that Belichick's not expecting, even if it's just for the edge on those first couple plays until they adjust. He's going to need some of those kind of cards to pull out.
Yeah, I think the game within the game is the thing that I'm most excited for, and that is the going into the game, building these game plans, and then within the game itself adjusting. We know Bill Belichick has made a huge legacy as probably the greatest coach to ever coach in football. And part of that is his ability to adjust within the game and get away from his game plan if it's not working. I don't know how much Sean McVay, I haven't watched his short career closely enough to tell you his adjustment abilities. But we know that he's a mastermind when it comes to the offensive side of the ball, and he's allowed son of a bum here to do his thing. I'm super rooting for Wade Phillips just because he is, like you've said multiple times, he's a national treasure, and I want to see him walking around with a fancy ring. But so yeah, the game within the game of the great lineup of coaches, probably right now the best in the NFL, and I want to see those game plans collide and see what happens. And I want to get your take. You're a betting man. You're going to be betting all kinds of different ways on this game. How are you thinking that this game goes? And what do you think if you're putting your money down? Where do you think things are ending up?
I've learned my lesson of betting against Belichick and Brady. And I did it in the
How much
AFC
money have you lost betting?
I don't even want to know. Now I won money on the Patriots in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs because I told myself, well, either I'll be happy that they lose or I'll win money. And I was wrong. I wasn't happy, and I have dirty, tainted money that I don't want.
I'll take your money if you need
it. It was gross. It made me feel terrible as a person. So I'm not going to bet on them. But I'm probably not going to do a whole lot on the game itself because, again, I just don't want to bet on the Rams. You can get decent odds if you're going to do it money line where you can get like plus 150 and at least win, $150 for 100. If the Rams win, trying to do the 2.5 points just doesn't do much. I think the under in the first half is actually a really good bet. It's a crazy stat. All of the Patriots Super Bowls with Brady, last year, they scored 3 points in the first quarter. It was the first time they had ever scored in the first quarter. It's crazy. They had scored 0-0-0-0-0-3. They always start slow. I think the Rams are going to try to run the ball. I think that the Patriots are going to try to keep the ball away from the Rams. I think it's going to be a low-scoring first half. Most of them are at like 27.5 to 28 points. And that's a pretty good bet. I actually think that the over in the second half is a good one. That usually teams kind of figure it out. The Patriots have a long track record of having a really good defense for the first half of the game and into the third quarter, and then they're kind of barely hanging on. So I think that there's both directions you can go there. I think the over-under for the game is pretty close. And then some of the prop bets are really fun. I just drew a blank. Their fullback, Devlin. Does Devlin score? You can actually get pretty good ones. There's pretty good odds on will a 2-point conversion be attempted, and that's something that's happened in like 9 of the last 10 Super Bowls. You can do the over/under on the national anthem and all kinds of fun stuff. But I really enjoy it. I think that it's silly not to pick the Patriots. I think that until they prove otherwise, it's crazy not to. I obviously desperately want the Rams to win, but if I had to, I'm going to pick the Patriots, say 31-28, that kind of ballpark, maybe 35-31. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to come down to a late score. I think it's going to be relatively high scoring. I would pick the Patriots in the over if I was, putting it out there, but I certainly hope that it's the Rams.
I think you have a problem with gambling on things. No,
You're not wrong.
I also feel like that you've been in my head all day because I feel super confident that it's going to be Patriots 31-28. That has been my gut feeling this whole week in my head, and I've tried to talk myself out of it, and I think that's what it's going to be. You guys have heard me in the Slack channel. I hate rooting for the Patriots. This year I'm taking a new approach. I've been doing this for 19 years or something stupid like that, rooting against the Patriots with everything that I have inside of me, and I'm going to switch it up and give them the reverse jinx and root for them to win. I think it's going to be 31-28 Patriots. I agree with you. I think that it's going to definitely be a game that starts slow, and I don't know if it's going to ramp up sometime in the late third, fourth quarter, but I think both teams are going to come out in this game trying to play keep away. Neither team, I think, wants Tom Brady to have the ball or the Rams offense to have the ball. And I think that is the plan to go into it. And then those plans, like you said, in the second half tend to get tossed out the window when that clock's running and those big rings are on the line. You start to kind of just pull out the shots regardless and get points. So I expect it to be a fun game. I expect it to live up to some of the hype that we, have heard about these two teams all year long. I'm not going to buy the underdog role from the Patriots.
I hate that. It's so
mad. I'm so mad at it. I want to punch everything on the internet in the face when I see that. I think it's two huge, colossal teams going against each other. And like you said, it's the last time we get to watch real football until the American Alliance of Football starts up in a week from now.
More football.
We'll have more football. I don't know how good it will be, but we'll have some more. But yeah, no, I think it's going to be a fantastic evening. I'm excited to watch it. And then once it's done, we're really fully into the 2019 offseason, and that's what I can't wait for, because we have a ton of content coming out here. We talked about it a little bit before with all the draft stuff coming out. Greg and I are going to walk you through hand in hand, skipping through meadows of daisies as we rip through the entire roster and we start to look at free agents that are available. I saw a lot of questions coming in through the YouTube chat about, particular guys in the draft or free agency or on a roster. How do we fix that? We're going to walk everybody through along with us through each position, so we can just take our time, really go through it, dive into it, see what's available, see all the different possibilities of how they can fix this thing and get the thing turned around here, because we have a lot of time between now and when things start really moving. So we are your spot. We are your source for the premium content for that kind of thing, those kind of discussions. And if you want to get involved and have a say and kind of dictate what we do and bring in suggestions, we always like that. Go on wherever you get your podcast, iTunes or whatever, leave a review for us. That helps a ton. Come over into the Slack channel. Like I said, cover1.net. Join the premium membership, come to the Slack channel, interact with us there. We take all the feedback and criticisms and whatever it is and try to apply that to the show every week. Greg, what else do we got coming up for content? What are our plans?
I actually have another problem along with my gambling. I like numbers a lot, so I spend a weird amount of time on SpotTrack and Over the Cap and sites like that, looking at the cap situation, financial elements. We had a lot of questions in the chat here about Charles Clay. So I think it's absolutely automatic that he gets released. It's $4.5 million to make him go away versus $9 million to keep him on the roster. I think we can replace him within that $4.5 million cushion, and I think it's just a net positive to have him go. He was a healthy scratch late in the season, and that kind of discussion position by position is what we're going to go through. What does it look like from a financial situation? What do we have from a young player situation? Who are some of the options in the draft? Who are some of the options in free agency? Who do we have in house? And we'll kind of walk through that and look at some of the different position groups and what we have as an option overall versus what could be out there to be improved, and where we might have to suck it up and just kind of patch it together for a year, and where we could really splurge. And I think that can be fun to look at with all the different options that are out there. And I know Eric likes to kind of temper expectations that this doesn't mean that all of a sudden we're going to be awesome the next 2 years. What it does mean is all the hard work we've done, all the medicine we had to take in the last couple of years is now coming to fruition, where we have a real opportunity to be able to improve. We have 10 draft picks. We have 90, probably by the time they're done with the releases of Vlad Dukas, Charles Clay, guys like that, maybe Julian Stanford, that's going to free up another chunk. They might be near $100 million in cap space to be able to work and use, and they're not going to use it all, but they're going to have an opportunity to fill a lot of these gaps. So just having that opportunity, not having to discuss things like, oh, should we try to eat the dead cap of releasing Trent Murphy? Do we have to release LaShawn McCoy? Should we trade Jerry Hughes? Those are decisions we had to debate in the previous years of, hey, how are we even going to make it into the next season with any money? We don't have to do that. So Brandon Beane took a lot of crap last year. The fact that we had $55 million in dead cap and a rookie quarterback, winning 6 games was a minor miracle. So the opportunity and possibilities that opens up is unbelievable, and the most exciting offseason we've had in my lifetime as a fan, what we can do. So now we need to cross our fingers that they hit on those signings and that they, hit a home run in one of these picks, and really pull that together. But it's very exciting to be able to have the opportunity to do that. And I think, Aaron and I are going to be able to bring everybody some awesome ideas, possibilities, projections of what we could see at each of those position groups going forward.
Speak for yourself. I'm only here for the hot takes. I have no good ideas. Now, if I have to hear or read one more thing about trading or moving on from Jerry Hughes, I'm going to slap the face off the entire internet. We've even had these conversations, like some of these guys that are perceived as overpaid. It's like they don't have their backs up against the wall, people. You can overpay some guys. It happens in all sports across all teams. Guys get overpaid or they're not living up to the perceived value that fans think their contract's worth. It's going to be fine. We have zero things to worry about when it comes to guys on the roster currently being overpaid, other than Charles Clay. But like you said, and I totally agree, he's probably 99.8% a cap casualty as soon as they want. It will happen. So, but yeah, I can't stand it. It shows up in my timeline all the time, questions about Jerry Hughes. If you're on Twitter and you follow me at Aaron Quinn 716 and you even start typing something out about Jerry Hughes getting cut, just know that there's a good chance I might mute you or block you. I'm not even playing around this offseason. I don't have time for it. Also, if you want to start having a conversation about Star Latule's overpaid asset.
Snap count. What about a snap count?
If I hear any of that stuff, I'm slamming down the block hammer on you guys. No, I won't block you, but I might just ignore it. But yeah, no, we got a ton of great content coming out. So make sure you head over to all the social media networks and type in Cover One. You'll find us. You can't miss us. You can find me at Aaron Quinn 716. Make sure you head over to iTunes, leave us a review. If you're on here on YouTube and you like this platform, make sure that you do head over and subscribe to the YouTube channel. When you do that, hit the notifications bell. That'll trigger you whenever we go live. Sometimes Eric and Nate just go and start talking about stuff. Sometimes we don't have a chance to really pump out the marketing and just get going on the show. So this will alert you. It'll go right to your phone or wherever you are and say, hey, those guys are doing it again. They're live, or whenever we have new content. So make sure you do that. Greg, if people thought you were smart and intelligent tonight, where can they find you and get more of that insight?
If you did, please tell me why and
call my wife.
So yeah, I'll give you my wife's number. Please tell her that you think I'm smart. No, find me on Twitter at Greg Thompsett, GregTompsett. Love to follow back Bills fans. Have a great time. Try to get into it. Try to keep my eyes open to everything that's out there and kind of retweet some of the information, give a little bit more detail on what's happening. And we've had a really good time with it. So I really enjoy it and hope you guys come find me.
And I hope you guys enjoy the Super Bowl. It is the last real football for a while, so just enjoy it. Eat tons of food, drink whatever beverage that you like to imbibe with, and just sit back and enjoy it. And we'll be back with you guys next week with an action-packed episode. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll catch you then.